There is a voice in your head whispering that you are not doing enough. That voice has been with you for years, maybe decades, telling you to push harder, work longer, try more. It is the same voice that keeps you awake at night, calculating all the things you haven't accomplished, all the ways you are falling behind. But what if I told you that voice is lying to you? What if the very thing you think will save you is actually the thing that is keeping you trapped? Here is the devastating truth that will shatter everything you believe about success. The harder you try to control your life, the more out of control you actually become. You know that feeling when you've been running on a treadmill for hours, sweating, pushing, giving everything you have, only to realize you haven't moved an inch forward. That is what most people call productivity. That is what our culture celebrates as hustle. But here is what nobody tells you about that exhaustion. You feel deep in your bones. It is not from lack of sleep or too much work. It is from swimming upstream against the natural flow of your life. It is from trying to force doors that were never meant to open for you. It is from chasing people who were never meant to stay. You've been taught that if something isn't working, you need to try harder. Wake up earlier, hustle more, fix yourself. But what if the problem isn't that you are not trying hard enough? What if the problem is that you are trying too hard? Think about the last time something beautiful happened in your life. Really beautiful. Not something you achieved or accomplished, but something that felt like grace. A conversation that changed everything. A moment of clarity that shifted your entire perspective. An opportunity that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Did you have to chase it? Did you have to force it? Did you have to convince it to happen? Or did it flow to you when you were finally still enough to receive it? There is a hidden law governing how the universe actually works, and it is the opposite of everything you've been taught. While everyone else is pushing, pulling, and forcing their way through life, the people who seem to have it all figured out understand something different. They understand that alignment attracts what effort repels. When you are aligned, when you are moving from trust instead of fear, from presence instead of panic, you become magnetic. Not because you are trying to be, but because you've stopped trying so hard to be anything other than what you naturally are. Here is what is really happening when you are constantly trying. You are broadcasting desperation. You are sending out an energy that says, I don't believe this will work unless I force it to work. And the universe, other people, opportunities, they all respond to that energy by pulling away. But when you trust, when you move from a place of quiet confidence that what is meant for you will recognize you, you become the kind of person that life wants to meet halfway. Let's talk about why this is so hard to accept. Why does trust feel dangerous when trying feels safe, even when trying is killing you? Because you've been addicted to effort your entire life. And like any addiction, it promises you control while actually taking all your power away. This addiction usually starts early. Maybe you learned that love had to be earned through performance. Maybe you discovered that attention only came when you were struggling, achieving, or proving yourself. Maybe you grew up in a world that celebrated suffering and called it strength. So you became an expert at trying. You learned how to push through exhaustion, how to override your intuition, how to keep going when everything in your body was screaming for you to stop. You built your entire identity around being the person who never gives up, who always finds a way, who makes things happen through sheer force of will. But here's the truth. They don't tell you about that identity. It is not strength. It is trauma response. Real strength isn't about how much you can endure. It is about how quickly you can recognize when you are forcing something that isn't meant for you. It is about having the courage to stop, to listen, to trust that there is another way. Here is where it gets interesting. The moment you stop trying to control everything is usually the moment everything starts working. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally stopped getting in your own way. Think about it. How many times have you been desperately trying to solve a problem, only to have the solution appear the moment you stepped away from it? How many times have you been chasing someone who seemed completely uninterested, only to have them reach out the day you decided to move on? This isn't coincidence. This is the natural rhythm of how life actually works when you are not constantly interfering with it. The truth is, you don't get what you force, you get what you are aligned with. And alignment doesn't happen through effort. It happens through trust, through stillness, through the radical act of believing that you don't need to earn what is already yours. When you finally learn to trust, something revolutionary happens. You stop measuring your worth by how busy you are. You stop equating productivity with value. You stop believing that struggle is the only path to success. Instead, you start moving like water. You flow around obstacles instead of trying to smash through them. You find the path of least resistance, not because you are lazy, but because you are wise enough to know that the right path rarely requires you to break yourself to walk it. This doesn't mean you become passive. Trust isn't about sitting around waiting for life to happen to you. It is about learning the difference between inspired action and desperate action, between moving towards something and running from something, between creating from love and creating from fear. When you trust, Your actions come from a completely different place. You are not trying to prove anything to anyone. You are not trying to outrun your insecurities. You are not trying to force outcomes that aren't ready to unfold. You are simply showing up, fully present, and allowing life to flow through you, instead of around you. Here is something most people never realize. Every time you try to force something, you are actually pushing it away. Every time you chase someone, you are giving them a reason to run. Every time you try to control an outcome, you are confirming that you don't trust the process. And that energy, that desperate, grasping, controlling energy, it is exhausting. Not just for you, but for everyone around you. But when you shift into trust, when you start moving from alignment, instead of desperation, people notice, they can feel the difference. They can sense that you are no longer coming from a place of need, but from a place of wholeness. This is what makes trust magnetic. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not constantly performing or proving. It just is. And from that place of being, you attract completely different experiences, better opportunities, deeper connections, situations that nourish your soul instead of depleting it. Let's be honest about something. The reason you try so hard to control everything is because you are terrified of what will happen if you don't. You are afraid that if you stop pushing, stop forcing, stop trying so hard, everything will fall apart. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The more you try to control, the more you confirm that you are not in control. Real control isn't about micromanaging every detail of your life. It is about being so grounded in who you are, so clear about what you want, so aligned with your values, that you can trust the process even when you can't see the outcome. This is the shift from control to trust, from burnout to balance, from proving your worth to remembering it. One of the most profound things you learn when you start trusting is that everything has its own timing, and that timing is rarely your timing. You want the relationship now. You want the career breakthrough now. You want the healing now. You want the clarity now. But life has its own rhythm, its own seasons, its own way of preparing you for what is coming. When you trust, you stop fighting that rhythm. You stop trying to force spring to come in the middle of winter. You stop trying to rush the process that is actually preparing you for something better than you originally imagined. This is where the magic happens. Not in the rushing, not in the forcing, but in the sacred space between desire and fulfillment. That space isn't empty. It is full of growth, of preparation, of becoming the person who can handle what you are asking for. It is full of lessons you need to learn, connections you need to make, healing you need to do. When you finally learn to trust, it doesn't just change your life, it changes everything around you. Your relationships shift, your work becomes more fulfilling, your energy becomes more sustainable, your presence becomes more peaceful. People start coming to you for advice, not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned to be comfortable with the questions. They feel safe in your presence because you are no longer radiating the frantic energy of someone who is trying to control everything. You become a living example of what is possible when someone stops fighting life and starts flowing with it. So how do you actually make this shift? How do you move from trying to trusting when everything in your conditioning tells you to push harder? It starts with small acts of trust. It starts with choosing to rest when you are tired, instead of pushing through exhaustion. It starts with saying no to opportunities that don't feel aligned, even when you are scared of missing out. It starts with allowing silence in conversations instead of filling every pause with words. Trust is built through practice, not through understanding. You don't need to believe in it completely before you start. You just need to be willing to experiment with it, to try moving from a different place, to see what happens when you stop trying so hard to make everything happen. Start with your breath. When you feel that familiar urge to force, to push, to try harder, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, what would this look like if I trusted instead of tried? Then do that thing. Even if it feels scary, even if it feels like you are not doing enough, even if it feels like everything will fall apart. Here's what I want you to understand more than anything else. You are not behind. You are not falling apart. You are not failing because you are tired of trying so hard. You are evolving. You are growing out of a way of being that no longer serves you. You are learning to trust something deeper than your fear, something wiser than your desperation, something more powerful than your need to control. The life you are trying so hard to create, it is already on its way. Not because you are going to force it into existence, but because you are finally going to stop blocking it from arriving. Trust doesn't mean giving up. It means growing up. It means becoming the kind of person who can receive what they're asking for without breaking themselves in the process. So take a breath. Soften your grip. Trust the timing. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Because what is meant for you will never pass you by. It is just waiting for you to stop chasing it so it can finally catch up. The more you trust, the less you'll need to try. And the less you try, the more life will flow toward you in ways you never imagined possible. If this message resonated with you, if you felt something soften inside as you watched this, then you are ready for the shift. You are ready to stop exhausting yourself with effort and start aligning yourself with trust. The world needs more people who understand this truth. People who move from peace instead of panic, people who create from love instead of fear, people who trust the process even when they can't see the outcome. You could be one of those people. You are probably already becoming one of those people. Trust that too.